Episode 58 begins at the Black Pyramid. So in the Tomb Chamber, we see Mum-Ra talking to the mutants, Slide the mutants' leader, including Jackalman and Monkian. Well, Slide wanted to know from Mum-Ra if he summoned them. Well, Mum-Ra not only said that he did, but he said to the mutants, well, it seems to me that you have failed in your mission to possess the Sword of Omens, he said. So in Mum-Ra's case, he just told the mutants that they must have given up the mission, but Monkian had pleaded his case to Mum-Ra to say that that's not true. So both Slides and Jackman have pleaded their cases to say that the Thundercats are going to be coming and that the mutants will never give up the fight and there's just no way. So Mumra says, enough of this. Then Mumra told the mutants to look in the cauldron and see for themselves, and saw it the mutants did. It's Lino. He's climbing the mountain. He also has his sword and his claw shield with him. So after Mumra had pleaded a case with the mutants, so long story short, back with the mutants, after they saw in the cauldron, that's when Slide, the mutants' leader, just told Mum-Ra, you know something? We were about to just come up with a little surprise, a plan, if you will, for him, he said. So even though Mum-Ra agrees with Slide but made a final threat clear to him and his mutants that if they don't succeed in their mission this time, then Kessel Plana will be torn apart by Mum-Ra. Then, worst of all, according to what Mumra said to Slythe and his mutants, that they'll be in exile. So, long story short, after the mutants agreed and has understood Mumra's threat, that's when they were off on their mission. So, long story short, back with Lionel, he was still mountain climbing, but he had no idea that up above was a cave, and inside the cave were the mutants, Slythe, the mutants' leader, including Jackalman and Monkian, and they were planning a surprise attack for Lionel when he shows up. Then, long story short, back with the mutants, now that they know that Lionel's on his way up right now, that's when Slythe, the mutants' leader, just told Monkian to give him the Thundradium cartridges, and so he did. So after Slythe, the mutants' leader, was loaded up and ready to go, and so was Jackalman, who later joins up with him. And to coin a phrase, according to Jackalman, one blast from this Thundradium cartridge, and Lionel would be as weak as a kitten, he said. So back with Lionel, who's still mountain climbing at the moment, but not for long. That was until the vine broke. But luckily for Lionel, he uses his claw line, and good thing he did. So thanks to Lionel's claw line, back with Lionel, he continues to climb up where he left off. And good news for Lionel, he made it to the top of the mountain. He didn't even notice that there are mutants behind him. Sly, the mutants leader, just welcomes Lionel. And when Lionel turned around, he couldn't believe it that there are mutants in front of him. We have Slide the mutants leader along with Jackalman and Monkian. Yes, poor Lionel should have seen this coming because for one thing it was all part of the plan. So Slide goes first to tell Lionel to hand over the sword. Then Jackalman jumps down to tell Lionel this case, unless of course you like skydiving instead, he said. So Lionel has his turn to plead a case to the mutants. If you want this sword, you'll have to take it from me first, he said. But unfortunately for the mutants, before they could do anything about it, Lionel does what he knows best. He uses his sword power to attack them instead, so he did. Back with Lionel, he was about to attempt to do what any good guy would do, was to call his friends from his sword, but Slide panicked and told his friends, don't let him call his friends, go on and attack him. So they did, with those Thundradium cartridges, of course. Back with Lionel, he tries to not give in to the Thundradium cartridges the best way he knew how, as the mutants continue their attack. Things are looking bad for Lionel as he gets weaker and weaker and weaker. That was until, long story short, Lionel had pleaded his case to say that there's no way he's surrendering to the mutants, so he finally did it. He projected a Thundercat signal from his sword, just like what any good guy would, so he did. So meanwhile in the Thunder Tank were Tigra and Panthro. When they saw the signal, they knew that there's no time to lose, so they rushed off to help Lionel. So back with the mutants, Sly, the mutants leader, including Jackalman and Monkey, and they're continuing to attack Lionel. But they knew that they had no luck, so they decided to shoot down the Thundercat signal instead. So they did. So back with Tiger and Panther in the Thunder Tank, they realized that there was something wrong with the Thundercat signal. So they realized that Lionel must be really in trouble, so they decided to hurry. So long story short, back with Lionel, things are really looking bad. And that's when Jackalman told his mutant friends, Slide the leader, and of course Monkey, to give him another dose of Dundranium. Then Slide stepped forward to tell Lionel to hand over the sword, but Lionel refused. And so the mutants again attacked him. But then, when Lionel dodged every attack that the mutants did, he was over the ledge. Things are looking horrible. Monkey and the other mutants just pleaded his case with Lionel to say, "You don't have a choice this time, your friends are never going to come to rescue you," and etc. But then suddenly, a voice out of nowhere saying, "I wouldn't count on it just yet. It's Tiger of the Thundercats, but he's not alone because with him is Panthro." Back with Slide, the mutants' leader, he just told Jackalman to go take care of Lino, while he and Monkey can take care of Panthro and Tigra. So Jackalman agrees, and then he heads off to face off with Lino. Tigra goes one-on-one with Slide, the mutants' leader, while Panthro is one-on-one with Monkey. So while that's going on, Lino goes one-on-one with Jackalman of the mutants. And attacks first, and then Lino dodges them, and then Panthro and Tiger show up. But before they can attend to what they're about to do, Jackalman says, "Stay back, or Lino gets to be over the edge," to coin a phrase. As you can tell that Lionel's still affected by the Thundranium, and he told his friends that no matter what, don't let the mutants take the sword. And that's when Tiger and Panther were about to approach Lionel, but then they were held up by Slide and Monkey. Back with Jackalman, he tells Lionel to hand over the sword to him. Panthro, meanwhile, just gave a signal to Tiger to disarm Slide, the mutants' leader, so he did. While that's going on, Panthro continues to have his battle with Monkey. As for Lionel, he continues to go on and on and on and on and on with Jackalman of the mutants. Tiger, meanwhile, he knew that Lionel was about to fall off the ledge and along with Jackalman, but then Slide had to stop him. As Panther and Tiger are dodging the mutants' attacks, the rocks begin to fall. Back with Jackalman and Lino, they finally fell off the ledge on a big rock that went with them. So back with the mutants, Slide and Monkey, and they knew that the rocks are falling down, so there's only one place left to go, the cave. So they went inside. So after a long story short, the mutants realized that Tiger and Panther are in the exact same cave. Back with Jackalman and Lionel, they continue to fall. So back with the mutants and the Thundercats, they're now in the cave. Back with Jackalman and Lionel. Lionel just told Jackalman, "If you let go, I can save us both." But Jackalman refused to hear Lionel's idea and said that he still wants the sword no matter what. So both Lionel and Jackalman continued to fall. And when Jackalman, they both fell in the water. And as you may have guessed it, they continued to fight and struggle of who's getting the sword and so on. And they continued to go on down the river as they were doing it. Long story short, back with Jackalman, he was caught in the current. He was shouting, "Help! Help!" So guess what Lino did? He did what any good guy would do. He tries to swim to get to Jackalman, so he did. Long story short, back with Jackalman, he was caught in the current. He was shouting, "Help! Help!" So guess what Lino did? He did what any good guy would do. He tries to swim to get to Jackalman, so he did. Before you know it, both Lino and Jackalman were struggling in the water again, but this time they fell over in a waterfall. Back with Jackalman, good news he made it to shore, but so did Lino, but he was unconscious at the moment. But he'll be alright. Well, back with Jackalman, he was looking to see if Lionel okay or something like that. So what he did is that he had stolen Lionel's sword. But Lionel, who was unconscious at the moment, he didn't even seem to notice it. So back with Jackalman, now that he has the sword despite a minor setback, he pleaded his case to say, "You can't resist my cunning, the power of the Eye of Thundera is all mine," and etc. Things are looking bad for Lionel since he's unconscious and he didn't even realize that Jackman just took his sword. So back with Tiger and Panthro and also Slythe and Monkey that are now in fact trapped in the cave. Well, Panther was asking Tiger if he was okay. Well, good news, he's fine. Now here comes the bad news. They're trapped in a cave, and so were the mutants. So what Tiger did is that he turned on the light of the willow whip. And of course, here's a bigger problem. There's no air supply anywhere. So Panthro, after he learned the bad news, that's when Tiger says, "We gotta get out of here and fast." Well, Slide's got a plan. He uses his gun with the Thunderian charge to get himself and Monkey and out of there before the Thundercats do. Then long story short, Tiger saw what Slide is doing. So that's when Panthro told him to stop what he's doing. Around to look at Panther, he was not very happy with that insult. So Panther says, "Listen to me. You're never going to get us out of here that way." Explains further to tell him why. He says, "We're going to be trapped more than you realize with those charges you use. It's just creating those rocks into solid mass," he said. The tiger has his turn to plead his case to Slythe and Monkey, and the more we fight with each other, we'll run out of air, he said. So when Tiger explained to the mutants that the only way out of here is if they work together, but Slythe refused. Told Slythe and Monkey that if they don't work together with the Thundercats, then they'll all die. Monkey, who've heard what Tiger said, then told his leader Slythe, "He's right, we should listen to him," Monkey suggested. "So how about a truce?" Panthro asked. So after thinking about it, Monkey went first to agree with Panthro. Then Slythe also agrees with Panthro and said, "Okay, but just until we get ourselves out of here," he said. So Tiger and Panthro went first to move the rocks, but they wouldn't budge. So Tiger looks at Slythe and Monkey and says, "Well, are we working together or not?" So back with Lionel, who just woke up moments ago, and he found out that his sword was missing, thanks to Jackalman of the Mutants. So now that Lionel found out that his sword was missing, then if that's not bad enough, he saw that Jackalman is getting away. So Lionel pleaded himself a case to say that there's no way he can catch Jackalman that way, unless, aha, he comes up with a plan. So what was Lionel's plan? He decided to take a shortcut, so that's what he did. So speaking of Jackalman back with him, and still has Lionel's sword, and he pleaded himself a case of how Sly should react the moment he meets up with him. And he, according to what Jackalman says in his case, Sly is going to be happy once Jackalman's got the sword for himself, and the mutants as well. So back in the cave with Panther and Tiger of the Thundercats, and Sly, the mutants' leader, and Monkey, and as Tiger and Panther were busy moving the rocks, that's when he was looking at Slythe and Monkey and says, "Hey, are you going to help us or what?" "We're just taking a break, that's all," Sly said. And that's when Slythe looked at Monkey and that's when he tells him, "We can attack the Thundercats once we get out of here," he said. Back with Tiger and Panther of the Thundercats, they were talking about that the mutants shouldn't be trusted and that the mutants will attack them once everybody gets out of there. And that's a serious problem. So meanwhile, back with Lionel, he's still trying to catch up to Jackalman, so he decided to use his claw line as a grappling hook. Back in the cave with Panther, Tiger, Slythe, and Monkey. So what Panther did is he's trying to get Slythe to get up and help them. And same thing with Monkey. He used to plead a case with Slythe to say, "If we don't try to work together, we'll never get out of here." And that's when Slythe had pleaded his case to say he can't breathe because he's running out of air, and so was Monkey. Oh, Tigress just told Panther that he has his turn to plead a case to agree with Sly that he is right, we are running out of air. So, Monkey and other mutants knew that what Tigress said was true. He began panicking. He said, "Oh no, we're never getting out of here. We're doomed." Then Tiger has his turn to plead a case with Monkey and to say, "We'll never get out if you panic," he said. So back with Panther, he goes over there to grab Slythe and says, "What are you waiting for? Get moving." And that's when Slythe says, "Get your hands off of me. You're going to be in serious trouble when Jackalman shows up and gets us out of here," he said. Then Panthro just laughs at Slythe and dismisses him. He says, Jackalman, he couldn't get us out of here with a paper bag, he said. Lionel will get us out of here, he said. So Slythe has his turn to plead a case with Panthro and says, we'll just see who's right and who's wrong, he said. You'll see. So back with Jackalman, well, luckily he made it to the cave. He was calling for Slythe and Monkey and then asked if they were in there. Oh, they were in there all right, but so were Tiger and Panther of the Thundercats. And back with Lino, he continues to climb up to catch up to Jackalman. Luckily, Lionel knew that there was no time to lose, so he had to hurry. Back with Jackalman, he was using Lionel's sword to get everybody out. So he says, Slide, Monkey, are you inside? Oh, speaking of which, back inside, that's when Tiger woke up and heard someone coming from outside. It's Jackalman of the Mutants. And speaking of Tigra, he knew that he was running out of time, and so was Panthro. Unless Lionel does something about it, this could mean a problem. So back with Jackalman, he tried to use Lionel's sword by cutting the rocks, but no such luck. So he tries to do what Lionel do and use the sword's power. But that didn't work. So speaking of Lionel, now that he's finally made it to the exact same place as Jackalman was, so after that, he saw what Jackalman did, so he decided to approach him. However, after insulting him, that's when Jackalman tries to defend himself the best way he knew how. He says, Don't come any closer. Then Lionel pleaded his case with Jackalman to say, I just saved your life, remember? So Jackalman has his turn to plead a case with Lionel to say, Here's some advice for you. Never do a favor for a favor. Then, long story short, after Jackalman had pleaded a case to threat Lionel, then Lionel started pleading his case with Jackalman. Then, what the sword did was unbelievable. Back with Lionel, he just saw what happened. He just told Jackalman to let go of the sword, but Jackalman refused. Then, what the sword did next was that it levitated Jackalman up in the air while Jackalman was still holding on to it. So long story short, now that Jackalman and the sword just came back, so what Jackalman did, he was still holding on to the sword while Lionel just watched it happen. With Jackalman, that is. So back with Lionel, he has once again tried to save Jackalman's life. So Lionel says, if you let go of the sword, you can take my hand. I don't trust you, Jackalman says. You'll drop me, he said. So Lionel just told Jackalman that he doesn't have much of a choice anyway. So what Jackalman finally did is that he grabs Lionel's hand. So back with Lionel, long story short, after he saved Jackalman, after pleading a case to say it's more to what he deserved anyway, because as he says, the Thundercats have a code of their own. Of course, Jackalman has his turn to plead his case. Then, long story short, Jackalman just told Lionel, don't expect any thanks from me. So then it's Lionel's turn to plead his case to say, I didn't do it just for that, especially for mutant thanks, he said. Then what Lionel did next was what any good guy would do. He calls for his solar omens to come straight to him, and so it did. So after that, Lionel just asked Jackalman a question. Don't you want to get your friends out of here? Well, according to Lionel, he wanted to get his friends out of here too. So what Lionel did is that he uses his sword power. So he did. So, long story short, back with Lionel, he continues to use his sword power, and finally, at last, the rocks exploded. So, you know what this means? Good news. Lionel had managed to rescue his friends, and so Jackman had reunited with his. So, back with Lionel, he went to check on Tiger and Pathro first to ask if they were okay. Well, good news, they're fine. They just needed some air. Then Tiger just told Lionel if you had been a few minutes longer, we all would have died in here, he said. So Lionel said, what do you say we go back to Kessler? He suggested. But back with Slide, who's the mutant's leader, he just told the Thundercats, not so fast. Jackalman once again was telling Lionel to hand over the sword, but Lionel once again refused and then said, you just mutants will never learn, will you? But then suddenly, back with the mutants, they started to attack the Thundercats. But then they realized they ran out of Thundralium, and that's because Thanks to Panthro and Tigra, they took their safety precautions necessary to disarm the mutants so they wouldn't get their hands on the cartridges. So that's a clever move on their part. Well, so much for the mutants having a score to settle with the Thundercats, so now it's the good guys' turn. So that's when Monkey had pleaded his case to say, "You wouldn't hurt a disarmed mutant, would you?" "Well, try me and let's find out," Panther said. But instead, the mutants ran off. So guess what? The mutants' plan to take Lionel's sword had backfired. So once again, the Thundercats win. So even though it's confirmed that now that everybody had left the cave, it is now time to have everyone get into the Thunder Tank and head towards Cat's lair. But Lionel just told Panthro and Tiger that he hated to lie to Snarf about this accident. He just didn't want him to worry. So good news for the Thunder Tank, it had finally arrived at Cat's lair, but better than that, both Panthro and Tiger agreed not to tell Snarf about what happened. So meanwhile, in the Castellar's hangar, that's when Snarf had pleaded its case with Lionel to ask, "Where have you been? I'm worried about you. What's going on?" So Lionel went first to plead his case to Snarf to say, "I just was going rock climbing." "Rock climbing," Snarf says, "as if that creep Mum Ra and those miserable mutants has given us enough trouble already," he said. So Lionel has his turn to plead his case to say, "You know how it is. I can't be cooped up in this lair all day. I have to do something," Lionel said. Then Tigra has his turn to plead his case to say, "Speaking of which, we might as well take a walk." And so he went off, and then Panther went to catch up with Tigra. So after they left the Thunder Tank's garage slash hangar, and that's when Snarf was asking Lionel, "What's going on with them?" So Lionel told Snarf, "Well, you could say that while I was rock climbing that day, they just found out there's a cave there." "Well, whatever's going on with you," Snarf says, "one thing is clear. It sure is good to have you back home. And you know something? Snarf's not kidding." And so, yes, it's true. Lionel and the Thundercats had their adventure that day on a mountain. So that ends episode 58.